Welcome. Today I want to share a review of a church history, world history curriculum that we have used several times. So let's take a look at this curriculum and talk about the importance of not learning just about this era of history, but learning about church history and understanding the spread of the gospel. Welcome to Learning with Boys. My name is Rachel. I am a homeschool mom of 4 boys. I have graduated too, and we are about to go on our 17th year of homeschooling. I do enjoy sharing homeschool content, past and present, so I really have quite a broad variety of videos from the younger years all the way up until now. This school year, I will have a 7th grader and another senior. So I want to talk about history. I shared another history video recently just about teaching history and how we came to find out what works best for us over the years and different things that we've used. It may help you in just narrowing down what style would be best for you and realizing there are different seasons in homeschooling and things may need to change up during those seasons. So I will link that below. Today I want to talk about church history, world history. So in the past video, I did mention from my own experience that in history with school, that I felt like I was learning a lot of dates and a lot of geography and people and memorizing a lot of different things, but it never just all came together for me. I never could see it in the big picture. So when we came to the era of like the Middle Ages, I was thinking church history is really what I have for myself a desire to learn, but really want my boys to understand how the gospel continued to spread after the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Teaching church history, really, it's intertwined with world history, but that's all part of Christ's plan, is so important to this homeschool family that has a Christian worldview and just really wants to see Christ and God's plan in all of history, and that he is ahead of everything and he knows what's going to happen. He has a purpose and a plan, and that was obviously to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. But as a mama, I see that the devil is still at work. He's still, even though Christ has come and has had the victory, he does not want his word spread and souls to be saved and the truth to be heard. So through teaching this and learning more about this myself, it's become even more evident in the spiritual battle that we don't see people go through so the gospel could be spread. So many people, and even today, we really can get oblivious to what people are going through and suffering for the sake of the gospel about Jesus and salvation. So I just wanted to share that thought with you in this part of history that, and I mentioned this in my last video, to keep that in mind, that you are going to grasp this at a whole different level than your younger middle schooler will. And it all depends on their age and their maturity of how much they will understand. But I do think it'll be definitely an eye-opener in helping them understand that these are real people and they made true sacrifices. So I just want to encourage you with that. Now, I am going to share this guide and this curriculum with you. It is very Christ-centered, and that is very important to me. In a curriculum, it always points back to the truth, to godly people. And now, this is a box curriculum, so it does include every subject, math and science, and we've used some of the science, we used some of their extra studies, but we don't use their Bible. We usually find our own Bible that I'm confident in, that we study. So I do want to share that thought with you, but I feel like they're living books. Their spines and the curriculum have been just amazing when you're looking for this way to study history, not through a textbook. All right, so it is Heart of Dakota, Resurrection to Reformation. And like I said, I have done a whole look through, like a week's worth, and I shared a lot about it last school year when my son did this, and all 4 of my boys have been through this guide. So I am going to show you the spines, and I will share some of the content in these spines so you know exactly who and what was been studied. I'm not going to share every detail with you, but just to give you an idea of how in-depth this goes. Okay, these are the spines for this Resurrection to Reformation. It seems like quite a few. The first one they really go through, which is Pearl and Peace, and then as you are going through the spines, you are at the same time reading one of the living books. So every day you're reading like a chapter of this and some out of the living books. They're not like one or the other. And I share that in my video where I show you a look through. But they pretty much go through this book first. I'm pretty confident in that. I could be off a little bit, but let me just share some of the things that they talk about in this particular book. And these are, there's two of them, the Ancient Church and Chronicles of the Medieval Church. And I must tell you, if you decided to look into this curriculum, these books are out of print. So they had to find something else, which is very similar. I actually have purchased one of them to go with my son's guide this school year, even though I have an old guide with one of these, just to see how it correlates. I was just curious in the difference. So I may share that in the future when we go through his Revival to Revolution. We're doing early American history this school year, but this is church history, world history, and so they do have books to replace these, but it's still going to be a lot of the same study. We'll be talking about Polycarp, Justin is martyred, persecution of Diocletian begins, Constantine conquers Rome, Edict of Milan, the Arian controversy, Basil the Great. Now I'm skipping some. I don't remember every detail. They used a majority of these. I feel like we pretty much read through the book. We may have skipped a chapter or two. Basil the Great becomes Bishop of Caesar, Library in Alexandria, the Roman Empire divided again, Council of Carthage, Rome is conquered again, Patrick becomes missionary to Ireland, Augustine begins writing City of God. Let's see, Benedict found in monastery at Monte Cassino, King Arthur dies, bubonic plague, Muhammad, founder of Islam, and then Gregory the Great. So that is this book. Now, this next book, I feel like there was some intertwining, the story of the Middle Ages, and this is a Yesterday's Classic book, and this sort of gives an introduction of what things were really like back then, and then it gets into the story. So I feel like for some people, the beginning, the introduction, and talks about the ancient Germans, it goes back pretty far. So it gives you an overview to get you to where you are in the Middle Ages. So some people struggle a little bit, but I've noticed that they do say once they get into the book, it's much better. But I do like the visual. It's very descriptive, so that's very helpful. And then you go back and forth between that and this book, which I'll give you a few things that are on this content here. Let's see, Boniface, Charlemagne, Constantine and Methodius, Vladimir, the divided church, the Great Schism, what were the Crusades, how the university was born, Thomas Aquinas, Catherine of Siena, John Wycliffe, Council of the Medieval Church, John Huss, and some more. So that's what that will be about. And this one is probably intertwined during that time too, famous men of the Middle Ages. This is from Memoria Press. This is probably a more familiar book if you've been homeschooling for a little while. Memoria Press has a lot of history, but this is more specifically definitely a spine, like you'll be reading about particular people. My son completely read this independently and could come back and talk to me about it. So these are what would replace a textbook. A few other books, like I said, with Charlotte Mason, you not only have written narration, oral narration, but sometimes you'll be drawing and you'll be copying out of this book, or a lot of copy work is out of some of the books, quotes, even scripture that is throughout these books. And the final book is Mystery of History. They actually fit this into the second semester. I say that this book is not just about specific events, but you have people in here you're talking about, musicians, artwork, all kinds of things through that Renaissance era. And I'm trying to think if any other books are intertwined as the spine. I think it's mainly this one. So you'll be reading some of this, and then you'll be also at the same time reading one of the living books. So the curriculum we are using uses a lot of living books, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But because it is a Charlotte Mason style, there will not be any tests or quizzes or any memorization of facts or places. It's more wrapped around their narration, either written narration, they also have oral narration. There is different independent studies, like you might have copy work with drawing a picture of what you just talked about. There's also artwork from that era that you're talking about. And then they have poetry, and they also have a Shakespeare study in this particular guide that I'm going to share with you. So I want to talk about what I mean by living books. When I talk about living books, this is my thought. It's usually a historical fiction. When I talk about historical fiction, I'm thinking about a true character, maybe even just a true event, with fictional characters around the event or the character that bring it all to life. So it may be about, for example, we have one about Johann Gutenberg, and it really is his life and how he came to invent the printing press, but it has fictional characters. It's almost like a little bit of a mystery in the style of the book. But so it is a historical fiction because everything around it is fictional, but the story itself and his life is true. So that's what I mean by historical fiction. So it really brings that era of history, a real event or a real person's life, and what was going on during that time to life for the student. So that's really helpful. There is also geography. So while you are studying this, you're mapping out like the Empire of Charlemagne, and which is good because you sort of know who owns what when. The Islamic Empire, the Byzantine Empire, and the Renaissance Italy, the early explorers, things like that. And there's several maps in here. So this was a very helpful part in bringing all this together also in a visual form. They also have an audio, What in the World CDs by Diana Waring, and that is part of what would be considered like an independent study, just sort of an extra reinforcement of what you just studied. So it's just going to reinforce, she's going to talk about what you either just read about, maybe that whole week that you've read about. It's just going to bring it all together in a story form also. So some of the living books, there is quite a pile of living books. I'm going to sort of go through what I have here and just give you a little note on some of them. This is Forbidden Gates. This is actually a really good book. This is definitely historical fiction in the time of Stephen and just sort of the conflict between the Jewish people and the new Christians. It's really about a young boy and how he comes to know Christ. So there's also The Morning Star of the Reformation, which is about Wycliffe. Here's Ink on His Fingers. This is about Gutenberg that I mentioned. This is Mr. Pipes. This is a really good book. It's about the Psalms and hymns of the Reformation, and it's really in a great story form. It is very fun and gives you the different hymns that you're hearing the stories about as this grandpa and a couple of children travel through Germany and some of the other European countries and see where these hymn writers lived and talk about their story, as they also have stories of their own happening. So there's also one on Sir Walter Raleigh, Gabriel, and the Hour Book. I think this is another yesterday classic. And there's Mountain Born, the story of Blaise Pascal, Squanto. I think there's also a CD for this. A couple bigger pictorial books. This is about Shakespeare, Leonardo da Vinci, Good Queen Bess. There's one about the knights. There's also, I think this is one of the last books about John Bunyan's daughter and her life, Mary. So, and I feel like I'm missing a couple, but I just wanted to show you these. So I just wanted to share those living books with you that you'll be reading throughout the year along with the spines. So if you have any questions, I will link Heart of Dakota's website linked directly to this particular year. You can go in and look at any of the years. They have curriculum from preschool all the way to high school. My oldest used American history for high school the last 2 years. It's a 2-year program. So, all right. I hope this was helpful and just encouraging that this is something, even as a parent, that you can learn so much as you are teaching your children about this particular era of history. This is meant to help them grow in their independence. And my son started reading a lot of the books on his own towards the end of the school year. But I have gone through this several times with my boys, so it was easy for me to talk to them about and see where they were at. So, all right. If this video is helpful, I would appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. If you are new here, I would love for you to join us by subscribing, and we will be talking to you again soon, and I hope you all have a wonderful week.